Hey guys, Follow Lover here, back with another Fallout 76 video, and today I'm going to be doing another tips, tricks, and facts video. The first one did fantastic, so I'm going to do another one. I know it's been a while, but we're just going to pretend that it hasn't, and we're going to move right along. To kick things off, this is one that I found out recently. The Cryolator will actually freeze over time if you don't immediately shoot it. For our next trick, you can actually get headshots with melee and unarmed weapons. I also tried this with bashing, but it's not as easy to get a headshot as it is with the melee/unarmed. So if you're ever using a melee weapon, feel free to get some headshots. Next up, we have a bit of a shocker, or at least it shocked me when I found out about it, but my other kings are actually snapping turtles. Now, I didn't actually know that for the longest time either, because I don't know what these things are. They definitely don't look like turtles. But apparently, they are. So for those of you saying that the Agua was the first turtle, the Mirelid King beat them to it. For anyone looking for a little bit of extra spice during the Scorch Beast Queen boss fight, there is actually a Wendigo Colossus spawn not that far from Fisher Prime. And this thing doesn't have the best pathfinding, but if you're able to get it out of the forest, you can actually take it over to the Scorch Beast Queen and fight both of them at the same time. If you've seen the so-called chess pieces in Fallout 76, and you have also played Fallout 3 in New Vegas, you might notice that they look eerily similar to something from the previous games. And that is correct. These things are actually the Fallout 3 New Vegas models for the robots. Throughout this video, I would like to go over a couple notable locations, starting off with the Mountainside Bed and Breakfast that is slightly to the west of Foundation. Now this location has an Unmarked Quest that is actually kind of interesting, and there's only a couple of them in Fallout 76, so if you're looking for some extra hidden content, be sure to check this place out. For anyone out there who loves doing events, riding shotgun is the only non-public event in the game that will actually award you with treasury notes. West of Vault 76, you can find a place known as Black Mountain Ordnance. Now this place is interesting. This place has 4 secret domes that you can enter currently that all require some sort of key, I guess you could say, to get into them, which you usually obtain by doing more unmarked quests. Now, I will not be going over how to access any of them. I just want you to know that they do exist if you want a little bit of a scavenger hunt. In the town of Welch, you can find a holotape belonging to Duchess. If you bring this holotape to Duchess in the Wayward, you can question her about whether or not they're the same person.
Oh yeah, I've heard of her. Rumor was that she was a smart, savvy, effortlessly beautiful drug kingpin. But I don't think you want to find her, honey. Left a trail of broken families wherever she went. Lucky for us all, that gal disappeared when the bombs dropped. World already had all the monsters it could stomach.
Next up on our location agenda, we have Sugar Grove. If you played the main questline, you'll probably have come here on bidding of the Enclave, but there's actually a secret back door that's completely not tied to anything. Now, I won't spoil it, but there is a key within the main building that you can use to access the back door, and trust me, it is there. Although I had to cheat and look it up because it's actually pretty well hidden. But you can go try and find it yourself, and it is really well hidden. But anyways, it will allow you to access the basement and the experiments hidden within. This next fact might not be very practical, but is something you can technically do. If you love Nuka-Cola Dark, you can combine it with Cola Nut and Party Boy since it is both a Nuka-Cola and an alcohol. But not only that, you can also combine it with Dromedary. And if I'm not mistaken, that allows it to be the only drink in the game that actually fills over 100% of thirst. In Fallout 76, there are not that many locations that actually allowed you to build a camp at them, but power substations like to break that rule. You can actually build a camp at any power substation in the game, and supposedly some of them will have a power box that you can use, but I think they're bugged and you can't actually connect them. So unfortunately you cannot get the free power, but if you don't care about the free power that you're missing out on, you can build at power substations. Between Graniger Farm and Carlton Mine, you can find a destroyed house that houses an alien blaster. This is the only spot in the game where you can find one of these, unless you've played the Invaders from Beyond event, in which you can just unlock the plan. But if you missed that event, this is where you can find one. If you try scrapping an alien blaster at a weapons workbench, you can actually unlock up to 3 new attachments from it. A scope, a long barrel, and a sharpshooter grip. In the Cranberry Bog south of Watoga, you can find 2 unmarked farms that aren't very much fond of each other. This is another one of those interesting locations that I alluded to earlier, and if you have not been here in game, I recommend checking it out. If you're not into interesting locations, you can at least come here for the bags of fertilizer that you can find on one side of the farm. When dynamite was first added to Fallout 76, it was never added to any of the leveled lists, and to this day still isn't. So if you want to get dynamite, you'll have to craft it yourself, and it is also a Boolean plan, so it's not necessarily something you're going to get right away. But if you want to cheat the system, there are 2 free dynamites right outside of Vault 96. If you're looking for a new spot to build a camp in the mire, try looking east of Haven Church. There's an unmarked power pylon there that I always found pretty interesting. There's this cozy little, secret train car building, I guess you can call it. I've seen plenty of people build interesting camps here, even though I've never really made one myself, but it's still a location that I like going back to from time to time just to check it out. Heading on over to Grafton, we can find ourselves a place called the Grafton Pawn Shop. This is another location that I'd like to point out because here you can find an unmarked quest. Heading inside the Grafton Pawn Shop, you will be able to pick up 3 notes in front of the front door. Reading through all of these will allow you to start an unmarked quest. If you are unfamiliar with unmarked quests, they aren't quests that give you any clear marker. Probably should have mentioned that earlier. But if you pick these up, you have to entirely figure out what to do by yourself. So if you're a detective and you want a little bit of work, this is actually a really fun quest, and I can recommend everyone check it out if you have not already. Continuing on with the Grafton theme, heading over to the Grafton Dam will find you a guaranteed Grog Knock in the Ruby Ruins holotape. So if you're a fan of holotape games and you really want a Grog Knock in the Ruby Ruins, there will always be one here. Similar to the chess pieces from earlier, the gauntlet actually has a familiar asset on it as well. Energy cells used to be one of the primary sources of, energy for energy weapons in the series. They kind of just disappeared after Fallout 4, but as there is one powering the gauntlet in Fallout 76, it seems that Bethesda hasn't really forgotten about them. To anyone else out there that likes listening to the radio in Fallout 76, and you've also been playing since launch, you may have noticed that Ring of Fire is the only post-launch song. If you're ever just wandering about in Fallout 76 and someone launches a nuke and your first thought is, hey, am I safe? Well, you can actually tell by listening to the game's audio. If you're within a blast radius, you will continue to hear a siren noise. For these next two facts, let's look at two actually unique uses for two unused legendary effects, starting with exterminators. Now, I never use it this way because honestly I don't know why you would, but exterminators will actually do more damage towards the Mothman. And in a similar vein, hunters is also more effective against the Scorch Beast. Now, these are two really unlikely uses for these legendary effects. I don't think anyone's going to use hunters just because it does more damage against Scorch Beasts, but if you're ever showing up to a Scorch Beast Queen fight and you really want a little bit of an extra boost, I mean, hey, if you got hunters, it will work. Same thing with exterminators. If you're fighting a Mothman and you got one, I mean, I guess it works. Don't know the practical use of them, but there you go. If you head over to the Tunnel of Love and go into one of the back rooms, you can find a filing cabinet. Checking in the back of the filing cabinet, you will find a snail, made out of baseballs and what I presume to be part of a weed whacker. Not actually sure what that back part is, as it's kind of hard to see in there. But, hey, it's a snail. For our next little fact, this one is actually not easy to notice. You have to really pay attention. Whenever you're in power armor, weapons don't actually slow you down. Now, this is another one of those things that it's not like it's the most practical thing in the world, because honestly, this isn't Call of Duty. You're not gonna be halved in terms of movement speed. So you still move pretty fast even with heavy weapons, and if you have Speed Demon or anything, it basically doesn't even matter. But technically, for the purposes of this video, this is a fact. You will actually not be slowed down in power armor. So you can do what you want with that information. For my fellow fans of expeditions, you can actually find an Easter egg in Union Dues that allows you to change the name of the final boss. Normally, the final boss will be called Trog Superior, but if you're able to find 4 holotapes scattered around the pit, you can actually rename him to Trog Striker, and this will carry over to future expeditions too, so repeats of Union Dues will keep the name tag. During the event Project Paradise, you can head into the basement of Arctos Pharma and you will find 3 habitats A, B, and C. All 3 of these habitats will have a research lab in which you will be able to find a piece of paper that has 2 numbers of a code on there. If you insert the code in the order of A, B, and C, you will then be able to unlock another room in a, I guess, second basement? It's like a basement within the basement, so whatever you would call that, basically basement 2. You will be able to activate Formula P. What this does is it will make the animals that you have to defend fight back. Now, this isn't really something I'd really recommend unless you have good enough players to get them to at least level 2, because since they will be fighting back, it's kind of hard to defend a blowfly that is trying to rush at the enemies that you have to defend it from. But if you have something like a Deathclaw or a Mega Sloth, they will definitely stand their ground. And between each round, the animals will heal a little bit. So if you do have good players, Formula P can definitely be worth it. Otherwise, yeah, no, you could just avoid Formula P. Up next, we're going to cover a couple sets of armor and weapons that are actually affected by a set bonus, i.e. if you have multiple items equipped at once, they will be buffed. Starting off with the most well-known, Excavator Power Armor will give you 100 extra carry weight if you're wearing a full set. Next up, we have the Garb of Mysteries, which makes you 20% harder to detect while sneaking and gives you 20 extra damage resistance and energy resistance. The Phantom Device will make you invisible for 1 minute and also will frenzy nearby enemies for 30 seconds, as long as they aren't robots. The Voice of Set will give 70 extra electrical damage to robots and also a 25% chance to stun robots. Now, I tried this one out in-game for a bit, and personally, I don't actually know what it means to stun a robot. None of the robots staggered or fell over or stopped or anything, so I don't know if stunning is just not in 76. But otherwise, I didn't really see anything remotely close to stunning, so I don't actually know if that effect works. But if it does, it's there, I guess? I just didn't see it. The Blade of Bastet will give plus 100% armor penetration, which, surprise, surprise, similar to the Voice of Set. I tried this one out in-game, and, well, I didn't really get the 100% armor penetration, so I think this one is also a fluke, as this one does not work as intended either. So I don't know what is up with the Mistress of Mystery gear, but it just does not work right, like, at all. So honestly, I can see why no one uses this. Now, onto something that actually works. We have Solar Armor, not to be confused with Thorn's Armor, as they look the exact same and there's no way to tell them apart. This will regenerate your health for you and nearby teammates when you are above 60% health yourself. Up next, we have Thorn's Armor, not to be confused with Solar Armor, as they look the exact same and there's no way to tell them apart. This will cause melee attacks to do 250 bleed damage. Melee attackers will take 100 bleed damage if they hit you. You will make 5% less noise while sneaking, and also be 15% harder to detect while sneaking. For our last Vault 94 related armor, we have Strangleheart Power Armor, which will give you 30 poison damage on each hit, and will also poison nearby enemies for 4 damage per second. And last but not least, we have Union Power Armor, which will give you 150 poison resistance and also 75 extra carry weight. Getting close to the end now, we have the Pepper Shaker and the Hellstorm Missile Launcher being 2 weapons that actually take from 2 separate classes. The Hellstorm Missile Launcher is classified as both a heavy weapon and an explosive, so you can use both heavy guns and explosive perks to boost its damage, and similarly, you can use Shotgunner and Heavy Gunner to boost the Pepper Shaker damage. If you've been out of the loop in Fallout 76 and have not been keeping up with updates, you can now get contextual ammo drops. What this means is you can get ammo for the gun that you use to kill your enemies. This will work with pretty much any weapon in the game except for Fat Man missile launchers and basically anything that you can't get ammo for in daily ops. But this does in fact work with ultrasight ammunition. So if you're like me and using the ultrasight plasma caster, you're going to get an absolute metric ton of ultrasight plasma cartridges. So if you want to farm a bunch of ammo and then just switch to a different weapon and absolutely unload that ammo you just got, you could potentially do that. So, yeah, ammo's easier to get now. And last but not least, hot tubs give you the well-rested bonus. I tried this with an ally at my camp and I was not able to get the Lover's Embrace to go off, but it does work with the regular well-rested, so hey, if you're early game and you got a hot tub and you don't feel like making a bed, I mean, hey, free XP, they work. So, that wraps things up for this video, and I guess that's it. This video was really fun to make, and also while making it, I did actually learn some things that I didn't even know, just like I did with the first one. So, I'm going to bet that you probably learned something too. Now, I do mostly go from memory with this video, like, this isn't me just reading the wiki and saying, ooh, that looks interesting, let me put it in a video. A lot of these came from my knowledge. Now, I did use the wiki to back a few of these up, but I only used the wiki to back up the ones that I knew existed. What I'm trying to say is I didn't just go on the wiki and then copy and paste stuff into my video. unless I already knew about it. Hopefully that makes everything clear. I didn't really state that in my first video, but the same thing happened with that. Speaking of the first video, it did amazing. Best video on my channel by far. So I would like to maybe do more of these. I wanted this one to be longer, but the first one had quite a few, and it did have the obvious ones. So when it came to making this one, it was a little bit harder to put this one together. So sorry if it wasn't as much as you expected if you did see the first one and were waiting for a sequel. But nonetheless, I had fun making it. I learned something. And I think this one turned out well for what it was. So, yeah, that's about it. I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, or night. Or afternoon, even. And with that being said, I'll see y'all next time. Later.